In these trying times, we all miss evenings out in Rochester's rich art scene. Well, we've got you covered right here on Arts in Focus. Back in February this year, we had a great night out exploring First Friday at the Hungerford Building. Tonight, we bring you that story, so stay with us to meet some fantastic local artists and wander the halls of the Hungerford from the comfort of your own home. But if you'd like to get out there and explore art in Rochester yourself, ROCO opened its doors to the public for First Friday in October with an exhibit titled Trust But Verify, and it will be on display until November 14th. Go to rochestercontemporary.org to reserve your viewing. And please, stay safe and stay well. Welcome to Arts in Focus. I'm Teej Jenkins, and we are thrilled to be on location at the Hungerford Building in downtown Rochester, New York. The Hungerford is a 5-story warehouse filled with dozens of artist studios, craftspeople, artisan vendors, and more, most of which are open Monday through Saturday. But on the first Friday of each month, many of these doors open to the public so that you can take a look at the creative work going on inside. Now, I want you to check out First Friday with me.
Arts in Focus is made possible in part by a gift from Doctors Dawn and Jack Lipson to support performance, innovation, and accessibility of the arts in the Rochester community.
My name's Jennifer Buckley, and I'm a potter here at the Hungerford. And I've been potting since I was in sophomore year in college, and it was an elective I took when I was in business school. So this is my hobby, and when I retired. I've been in the Hungerford, I would say 16, 17 years. In this studio, I've been in the studio for 9 years. I shared or rented space from other artists before that.
And for anyone who doesn't know what the Hungerford Building is, can you kind of just give a brief description of it?
Well, the Hungerford is an old factory building, and it was the home of J. Hungerford Smith, Fruit, Syrups, and Sauces. They have since moved out of the city, and since Rochester Contemporary started their First Friday program, a lot more artists wanted to move in.
How does a person get a space here?
The building is owned by McGuire Properties, and contacting them would be the way to get a space. And they do have a waiting list at this point, and a lot of it depends upon what size of space you want. The spaces are, varying sizes, large, small, and we find a lot of young folks in here doing their thing, along with folks like me, retired and wanting space out of their home to do it. It's a community, and I enjoy it. We have many painters. And groups of painters. There are several potters. I think there's 9 potters in the building in various locations. There's several fabric artists doing quilts and that sort of thing. Photographers, glass beaters, jewelers. We even have an ice cream maker in the building. It's nice to have other people to sit down and chat with, or to see in the hallways and talk to different people. The young folks are very inspiring because they're all gung-ho about things. We have a great location here on Main Street. We're close to the public market. We're on the edge of the neighborhood of the arts. And it's a funky building, and it's just attractive and fun to wander through.
What does it feel like to work amongst other artists?
Well, it's nice because I can look at other art and see in their art what would transfer to mine. And you can draw from what they're doing and a technique that maybe you hadn't thought of using with your particular type of art. In fact, I might borrow, a couple of pounds of a certain chemical to mix my glazes if I've run out or almost run out. And it's a community. It's like, do you have, or asking questions. Do you know, look at this glaze, what happened? Tell me, I don't understand why it happened. So just, knowledge is a good thing to trade out.
What do you guys think about First Friday, like getting the public in and seeing your work? What does that feel like?
Well, it's like doing a show every First Friday, once a month. I tend to have a lot of followers, so people come in and I do pay my rent directly from sales from my studio. Now there are other people that are actually making a living at it. When Rochester Contemporary started First Friday program, the idea was a way to get guests into our building to see what is really here. That was a way to bring us together to say, yeah, come and we'll have our doors open. There's a lot of people out there that they like to explore, and that's the good thing about it. They'll come maybe the first time and then they'll come back because they see things and they'll come back and maybe purchase the second or third time they're in the building. I'm here and opening my doors because I like interacting with people, and they do make suggestions on could you make this or could you make that sort of thing. Just one way to talk about my art. You know, for me it's the community and to be here and to have a nice space to work.
All right, Jen, thank you so much for your time. And now I can't wait to get out and see what First Friday is all about.
My name is Christopher Little, and I am a jewelry designer. I also do a wide variety of jewelry repairs. I do what's called cabochons, which are the stones with the dome tops and the different free-form shapes, like the opals and turquoise and things you see like that. And I just spend a bit of money just getting the type of equipment that I need to cut any kind of stone I want. Opal, I love to cut, but you have to be extremely careful. And if you make an error with an expensive opal, it can be heartbreaking because it could be a lot of money down the drain. There's a number of stones that, like peridot, that are very fragile. And like with an emerald, you can spend many thousands of dollars and then hit it like that and it's done. So that's something that I think jewelers should always be very open with, that you know, really tell about all the different features of the stone so that the wearer can be cautious enough.
What do you think of First Friday?
First Friday is a really wonderful time because people come out and they get to see what all the artists are doing, and it's just a kind of a festive environment, you know, and people seem to really enjoy it, and the longer it goes on, it seems the better it's gotten.
What does it feel like to you to have the public come in and check out your work?
It makes me feel good because I get a lot of really good feedback. You know, it kind of establishes in your mind that you're on the right track. Helps you feel like you're getting somewhere. This is a unique environment. I was looking for something that wasn't so traditional because I was doing the traditional route for so long, and I wanted to try something different. And this is an environment that really encourages creativity. You see all the amazing artists that are here. So I think we feed on each other's energy, and I think that really makes it a really nice place to be.
I wanted to be potter when I was small, but my parents said no, so I waited and get married and moved back here.
Did you have any training for pottery?
I did a little bit in college as a club, but basically no.
Can you describe just a couple of the steps in creating one piece?
Start with prepare the clay, and then throw on the wheel, and then wait for dry. And once dry, flip over, and then trim the bottom piece, then wait, and then put in a bisque kiln, and then glaze, and then put in a gas kiln fire. But quickest probably I can do 1 week if you really push it and I'm supposed to do it, but I can do 1 week. But normally it takes 1 month. Mine is strictly functional.
Is it durable?
Yes, it is durable. You can use microwave, oven, dishwasher.
Can you tell me about the process of making your browns? How do you create that? How do you get the glaze to look like that?
It's a glaze is form the glass over the clay.
Can you just describe some of the items in here?
Most selling pieces like this is earring bowl, which is my butter and bread piece, and which is like customer told me to make it. And this one piece is evolved starting from this piece, and then next year customer said, I wanna put the jewelry in. So it's a process with interaction with the customer at the shows, and then they tell me what they want. And if it's feasible, then I go make something like that.
What is your experience with First Friday?
It's fun. A lot of people go through the buildings, and also I can have the interaction with the customer to see what they are looking for.
Have you ever heard of post-industrial landscapes? Well, we're going to learn more about it from artist Dale Klein. Check it out.
I'm Dale Klein. I'm primarily a printmaker, and that means that I make hand-pulled prints. I am mostly an intaglio printmaker, which means I usually work on copper. I was a clinical social worker for 25 years, and while it was a good career, it was never my passion. I always have been an artist. As a kid, I drew and painted and made art. I didn't feel like I could make a living off it, so I went to college for something else, raised my family, worked as a clinical social worker. And then when my older daughter went off to college, all of a sudden it hit me, maybe I'll become an art teacher. I went on and got a bachelor's degree, and then they encouraged me to get a master's degree. My first course was with Ron Netsky, who's a professor at Nazareth, and one of his specialties is aquatint, which is a way of putting tone on an intaglio print and etching. It's a very complex process, and I tried to hone my craft. You know, I'm a person of place and time, and I started to get interested in the manifestations of rural areas being very poor in upstate New York, and factories closing, and what was happening to those buildings, and how interesting that was to me. And so when I was at Nazareth, I started taking photographs of this stuff. And then I decided to use it for my printmaking too. Making an intaglio print or a lino cut or relief print, it's not a direct process. What I do is I start with the photograph that I find interesting, usually of some kind of post-industrial site, whether it be a scrapyard or something like that. And then I will use that as reference to make my plate. I do various things to the plate to get some incision into the plate. And then when I've done all that, I ink up the plate with a card and try to get the ink into the grooves, and then I will wipe that off softly. I put it through my press, use great pressure, and then I pull my print. Usually I get my inspiration from photographs I take, and I will do some cropping of the photographs on Photoshop, or take things out of the photographs and put them in the print. So I have an idea about the subject matter. I know what it's going to look like in terms, I know it's going to be a factory, I know it's going to be flowers coming out of the factory. What I don't know is how exactly it's going to look. So I have an idea about what the image is going to be, but not how it's going to really look. I'm not terribly interested in reproducing nature's beauty. I love nature and I love the beauty and I love looking at it, but I feel like I can't improve upon it. And I'm also more interested in structure versus the beauty of how nature takes over the man-built environment. I call my work post-industrial landscapes. When someone views my work, I hope they find the beauty that I feel I have imparted in my image and that they feel something when they see it. I love being in this building because there's so many different things going on and so many wonderful artisans and businesses and people trying to make a living doing what they love. It's nice to have people come in and appreciate my work, have some interesting, stimulating, creative conversations.
Hi, I'm Julia Dio, and my business is So Artistic, and this is the Fiber Art Gallery. And I make mostly patterns for other sewers and quilters to use, but I end up having a lot of samples that I sell here, along with items made by a dozen of my local friends.
Do you feel that First Friday is rewarding?
It is. It's an opportunity to sell not only my work, but the other artists that have their work here. I chose this building also partly because they did participate in First Friday. And part of my decision to come to this building was, if I'm going to go to a building that has those options, I'm going to be open every First Friday.
And you are a special studio because it's not just about you and your work, you're also helping other artists.
Right. Usually between 10 and a dozen local people who make fiber art that don't have another venue where it really fits. And I'm happy to have their work here. And then they become featured artists and often help me on First Friday, so I'm not here by myself.
My name is Shelley Green Stoller, and I work in ceramics, and I've been working in ceramics since 1978.
Was it always stoneware? Like
No,
always these functional dishware?
I've done it all.
How long have you been in the Hungerford building?
About 15 years.
Okay.
It's a very relaxed, very casual atmosphere. There are 3 potters on my section right up here, and we're all friends. And our work is all very different. We share ideas, and when somebody's in a pinch, we help out. You know, it's a community.
What are some of the pieces that you design?
I design all of it. And this is all functional ware. It's all stoneware. It's a mid-range stoneware. It's lead-free, oven-proof, dishwasher-proof, microwave safe.
I'm Carol Domenico, and I paint on silk. I paint scarves, sarongs, capes, jackets, tunics. Anything you want hand painted on silk, I can do. We call ourselves Studio 254. I love painting on silk. I absolutely love it. It's so spontaneous. I'm not really ever sure what's going to come out. It's true.
And what do you like most about being in the Hungerford building?
The community of people. It's just such a network of artists. We're all different from each other, and we all share ideas and experiences, and we learn from each other.
My name is Tony Zaney, and I am the owner of Type High Letterpress, and I like to say I make cool stuff with old stuff. I own a letterpress print shop which has 750 plus drawers of wood and metal typefaces. And those are all the old typefaces that you would set by hand that would create posters, greeting cards, newsprint, all that good stuff, and we get to make art prints with it. Letterpress printing has been around since the 1450s, and it's what Gutenberg started out with as movable type, except now it's been mass-produced in a way, and we get to take that type, create a design, lock it up, ink it up, roll the paper over it, create a print. And that print is what you see on the walls here at the shop and on our website. When I was in my old space, I was sort of on an island. And so being in this building and being able to walk down the hall and see other artists and talk to them about what they're doing is really kind of cool, because it opens you up to a whole bunch of different things and different types of art and different ways of doing things. And we sort of just, ideas breed off of one another when you do that, and I think that's been a great benefit for being here. It's just a great little art community. I love First Friday. We get to meet all sorts of new people. We get to sell our product, which is great. It's really kind of fun. We get our music playing, to sort of draw people down the hall to make sure they know we're open. And there are times where you can't even walk through the shop. They're just wall-to-wall people, and everybody's asking you questions, and everybody's like, what's this? What's this? Show me that, show me this. And so we get to show people how printing used to be done and how the printer was the designer, and all of our old machines and all of our wood type and everything else. I think it's just great. It's so much fun to just be out in public and have people come in and see your craft and learn about your craft.
Now, this studio belongs to one of my favorite quilters, Miss Jean Simpson, and she'll show us that there's more to quilting than just patterns and fabrics.
I am Jean Simpson, and I'm a contemporary art quilter. A contemporary art quilter is someone that uses the medium of fabric in a non-traditional way. No patterns, it's an original design. My inspiration from quilting came because I was a stay-at-home mom, and I needed to have something that I did that showed what I did for my day. And so I took the longest running quilt class that I could find. And when I took the class, I thought, this is the wrong class for me, because everybody in the class was experienced and I was brand new. And the teacher said, no, just, you'll be fine. And I worked through it and fell in love with it. Art wasn't a priority in my childhood schooling. I never really had any art lessons until I started quilting. And then what I did is I researched different teachers and techniques to learn what I wanted to help myself progress in the quilting. I originally started out as a traditional quilter, and then within 2 years I began teaching quilting because it just took off and I loved it. I worked in a quilt shop. I designed patterns for a fabric designer. I've repped a line of fabric. So I learned every aspect of how it works. When I first started quilting, I used several different patterns. And in traditional quilting, there's different styles that you can advance to depending on your level of experience. And then as I advanced through that, I needed more of a challenge. And so then I started to get into the art quilting. And that was about 10 years into my quilting experience. Quilting is a process with a number of steps. The first thing that you do with quilting is the piecing, and that is the very top. That's where some of the design happens. So once you're done with the top of piecing all the pieces, and they're exactly as you want them, then the actual quilting part comes by adding a batting in the middle and a backing. So it's 3 layers. And for me, the quilting process gives me another opportunity to change the design or to take the viewer's eye and have them look at the piece differently than if they just saw the top. One of the things that I try to do with my quilting and with my art is to have the viewer take a closer look. Because if they don't come closer, they're not going to see how the quilting changes the piece. So one of the ways to do that is I will use a different color thread. And when I use that different color thread, if the person gets close enough, they're going to see that color and they're going to see, why did she put that there? And take another step in. When they take that step in, then they can see the quilting, and then they can really see the design of the whole piece come together. My quilts are unique because, one, my fabric selection, and I think that what happens, you end up having almost a color personality. They all have, certain shades in them that I use. Other is the different types of fabric that I use in my technique and my hand when I am cutting my pieces. The contemporary quilts that I do, I usually cut freehand, and which is very different from traditional where you're using rulers. In the quilts, I use a variety of different techniques from fabrics that I have manipulated, either by putting color into the fabric, stamping on the fabric, screen printing the fabric, or taking color out of the fabric. I've also used photos that I've manipulated and run them through the printer for different things. So it's pretty much what does the quilt need, just to make it a little bit more interesting. I feel that if you have a good fabric, it does a lot of the work for you. Usually when people come in and they see my work for the first time, they can't believe that it's fabric. When I am starting a piece, I get my inspiration from all over. I'm starting a new series called Into the Woods. And that's where I will go into the woods, I will take some photos of the trees in the woods, but I look at them differently. I'm not looking at trees, I'm looking at line work. You know, how does one tree cross over the other tree? What fabric would I use for the background? What would I use for the trees? What if I change the background up? How does that change the design? I came to the Hungerford building about 4 years ago, and everybody has been very welcoming and would share whatever knowledge that they had. I think that it has so much to offer. The people here in the Hungerford are amazing. I've done a couple collaborative art projects with people. So you just get an excitement while you're here and just kind of feed off of each other. Even though we're working in different types of art, we all speak the same language. First Friday's exciting. There's a lot of different people that come in. You get to meet some people and talk with people that you probably wouldn't have been able to talk to. So I think being here is important.
I've been coming here for a few months. It's just so much fun. Just the creativity of everybody and all the different types of stuff that people do. And getting to meet new people is honestly the best thing.
You've got these amazing local artists doing this amazing work, and the opportunity to support that, I think, is important. But also, it kind of grounds us in the community. We're still pretty new to Rochester, so I think, you know, it kind of makes it feel a little bit more like home.
We actually came from the public market and then decided to do this just because you can do so much in such a small area. You can find a bunch of different studios and kind of stay out of the weather and do a ton in one spot.
Yeah, I didn't know that this stuff was being made here, and we're actually in the spaces where it's being made with the people who are making it. So it makes me feel very connected to the city that I live in, which is very cool.
Thank you so much for joining us on this First Friday at the Hungerford. As you can see, there are so many talented artists in our city, and they're contributing so much to the arts community in our region. Please keep checking us out online, and thank you for watching. I'm Tej Jenkins. See you next time.
Arts in Focus is made possible in part by a gift from Drs. Dawn and Jack Lipson to support performance, innovation, and accessibility of the arts in the Rochester community.